لما بنحكي عن الصحة دايما بنرجع لنفس الثلاثي: الغذاء، الحركة، والنوم. هدول مهمين ما في شك، لكن في ركيزة رابعة كتير ما بنسمع عنها، بغيابها ممكن يتلخبط كل شيء تاني، وهي الهرمونات. الهرمونات بالضبط هي النظام اللي بيشغل كل شيء من الداخل، وما لقينا أفضل من دكتورة مقدس أكسوس، استشارية طب التوليد وأمراض النساء في عيادة هيلث باي بوليكلينيك، لتكون ضيفتنا اليوم بهذه الحلقة. دكتورة مقدس مش بس بتعالج الأعراض، تسأل ليش صارت هالأعراض وشو جذورها، وبتبلش العلاج على هالأساس. Mukaddes, thank you so much for coming to see me today.
Pleasure being here.
A lot of buzz these days around health and well-being and longevity, and everybody wants to die young as late as possible, as they say. Everybody wants to be as healthy and live as long as we can. A lot of factors go into this, obviously. What we spend most of our lives worrying about and maybe fighting or pushing away is disease. I would like us over the next hour or so just to talk about this formula of living long and living well. So what is disease, what is prevention, and what is treatment? And these are the three pockets that I would like to visit. To start with, what is disease?
I would like to get back to something which you said before. Everybody wants to live longer in our days. And what medicine already achieved is that we live quite long. But what is the biggest problem and what gets even worse right now, in spite of having a better medicine, is that we live long, but the time before we die is dominated by multiple disease. And the last 10 years, and actually this time gets even longer. In US, it's more than 13 years. We spent the last 13 years of our life, we spent being sick, being not healthy, and not living the life we want to live. We have multiple disease, we are suffering, and we need care, we need support, and we cannot sit literally in the driver's seat. And we need to really live a life which we cannot enjoy.
And this is outside of our control. Of course, disease is two parts. It's chronic diseases, but also
exactly.
acquired.
So it is not outside of our control when we take care of it, let's say, early enough. So it has many components how we can avoid being sick in the last 10, 13, whatever years before we die. Most importantly, it is lifestyle. Yeah. So what we do, what we eat, what we not eat, has never been as important as in our days, especially the eating. So there are multiple pillars of healthy aging. I don't want to call it longevity because this word is so misused sometimes. And the focus is healthy aging. And so the major part is for sure, I'm absolutely convinced, and what we eat and how we eat. Mm-hmm. So the content of our eating and how we eat in terms of, do we eat permanently? Do we have breaks in our eating? Yeah. For example, fasting, but in a medical way, fasting can impact our overall health. And what is also very important in our days is when we look to food which was pre-prepared to have a so-called long shelf life, it needs to contain a lot of chemicals which are first line, or let's say not immediately harming, or it doesn't look like they are harming us. Yeah. But on long term, we can see that they are harming us.
Of course, fresh food, as we say, farm to table and so on, is known to be much better for us. It is the choice where we can have it. But also advice changes from time to time about what Absolutely. You eat and what you don't eat. Yeah. I remember when my children were very, very small, margarine was the thing to eat, for example. This is like 30 years ago.
Okay.
Today,
I don't know what is margarine.
Exactly. Exactly. So don't polyunsaturated fat and saturated fat. That was the debate at the time. And so stop eating butter because that's going to cause you cholesterol and you know, cause damage to your liver, and don't eat the oils because if they heat too much. So margarine is that something in the middle. Now, of course, it is the evil right now.
Exactly.
So
the
advice keeps changing every few years.
Yes.
And that's what confuses a lot of people.
Meanwhile, let's say the big names in nutrition medicine I read more or less the books and or follow up the studies and research of very big names in the world. One is, for example, Professor Walter Longo at the University of Los Angeles. The other one is a German Professor Andreas Michalsen. He's at the Charité. And I read a lot and follow what he's doing, Tim Spector in King's College London. And they agree, actually, more or less on certain things. We know we should eat as much as possible plant-based. 80% plant-based is the new topic. Secondly, we should eat as diverse as we can, plant-based. So not only tomatoes and potatoes. For example, Tim Spector says we should have at least every week 30 different plants which we eat.
Okay.
Third, what is important is red meat because of the upbringing of the beef of the animals seems to be very problematic. So we should reduce this as much as possible.
Not because the meat itself is not good for us, but because of the way the cattle is reared?
Exactly. Mostly this, but also generally red meat as less as possible, 1 to 2 times maximum in a week. And we should also, what is very important is that the food which we eat is as less processed as possible.
Okay.
So when we eat the full wheat corn in a bread, it's completely digested and reflects completely different in our body than when we eat, for example, bread with white flour.
Very processed.
Yeah, very processed. So as less as possible processed. So the best is really to buy ingredients, not anything which has an ingredient list on the backside. This is actually a very good principle. When you go to the supermarket, you should not be able to turn it around and see what is in it. So whatever is a genuine ingredient, and you do your food at home, ideally with very good fats, and this is very crucial. So we know now, always knew that extra virgin olive oil is the best. And there is no doubt, and everybody agrees on this. Yeah, we cannot have enough extra virgin cold-pressed olive oil.
Okay.
Yeah, and
but then it's how you use it.
Yes.
It's how you use it.
And how you use it. This means you try not to heat it. So whatever food you prepare at the end, to add more olive oil. There are beautiful studies showing how beautifully olive oil can protect from cardiovascular disease. Literally just olive oil. Compared to, let's say, the typical healthy diet we were believing is healthy, like in the 80s, 90s, even in the beginning of this century, what dietitians were actually suggesting to people who were having cardiovascular disease. And there's a wonderful study which was conducted in Spain, and the idea was to observe people randomized to groups, which one big group was having dietitian diet, the typical one, and really every week the dietitian would see them and advise them what to do, what not to do, low-fat diet. And the others, and this all of them were rather high risk for cardiovascular disease. The others were advised to have a lot of olive oil, in average 70 ml of olive oil per day. I mean, this is a lot, right?
You think
that's really a lot. And another group was advised to eat a lot of walnuts mainly, tree nuts, almonds, walnuts, but mainly walnuts. And the idea was to observe this group for 10 years. And after not even 5 years, they had to stop the study because it was unethical to continue, because the dietitian group had 30% more cardiovascular events.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and the others, and what was very surprising is that, you would think somebody who is having 70 ml of olive oil every day, this is a lot of fat, this is a lot of calories, these people would gain weight. Actually, I mean, these were people, I'm not remembering very well the age group, but I think they were 55 or 65 or older, so rather in the second half of life. And normally you put on weight with the time. And over this almost 5 years, they actually had lost weight. They had lost weight in average 1.5 kilos instead of normally putting weight when you grow older.
Okay, so what we eat is could be a primary driver of healthy living or not.
It's most likely the most important driver.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. But then you say not to eat that much red meat. That is the advice out there. And then on the other hand, somebody's training very hard in the gym or lifting weights. They are advised to eat a lot of that because they need all the protein, and where they can't really get enough protein into their bodies if they are avoiding
this is
animal
a
products.
Misbelief.
Tell me.
Look, we have wonderful proteins also in, I don't say that we should not eat any animal products. Red meat seems to be the most difficult part or difficult animal product regarding health. But fermented dairy, when you tolerate it well, I mean, there are people who do not tolerate at all any lactose. And the most of the people actually are lactose intolerant, by the way, genetically. Yeah. But when it's fermented, that's why mankind invented fermentation, apparently. It's mostly tolerated well by the most of the people. So cheese, any kind of cheese, and I'm Turkish, without cheese I would not survive, is a good protein source. Then eggs are good protein sources. And we have a lot of vegetables which are fantastic protein sources. Lentils, any kind of lentils have the best proteins. Chickpeas, beans, tofu, all these kind of things can be used. And yes, when we are older, especially, we should take care that we have more protein in our food. This is also a topic where everybody agrees. How much, they still discuss if it's good to have it 1 gram per kilogram, or is it, do we need more? These are for sure, there are discussions ongoing regarding this, but we should take care when we grow older in the second half of our life to be able to maintain our muscle mass. We need more protein.
I don't know, maybe because I follow it, or maybe I feel that there is no one topic that is more debatable these days than
Absolutely
what
agreed.
do we eat, what do we not eat, what's good for us, what's not good for us, what causes disease, what prevents disease.
Exactly. The principles, there are some principles. I don't go into details because there are debates. You're absolutely right, is that we should not eat too much. Plant-based is mainly we should eat plant-based. Secondly, we should eat as less processed as possible. And even the oils, as much, even if we don't take olive oil, the best oils are the cold-pressed ones.
And that is part of prevention of disease. And let's talk about chronic diseases. We're not talking about diseases that are, that you catch a virus from here or there. But chronic diseases, cancers, and autoimmune diseases and all that. What happens in the body that you get there? Is it in my control to catch those, to get those or not?
So when we look to studies regarding these kind of chronic diseases, there's a lot we can do. We can do ourselves to prevent them. And a chronic disease is, or let's say, especially cancer. When we talk about cancer, cancers hardly have one reason. The reason why we have cancers is there are multiple things which actually can lead to the cancer. And we can, in our days, recognize risk factors which make us more prone to have cancers and try to avoid this. One of them is, for example, and in this region especially, people are very much affected by this risk factor, is we know now that the stage way before we have diabetes, or maybe we don't get diabetes ever as the definition of the diabetes is, like having a long-term sugar marker which is beyond a certain level, whatever. And way before we have diabetes, we can have conditions of abnormal sugar and insulin metabolism.
Okay.
And in our days, it looks like that this is one of the very important drivers for cancer. Maybe many people know Dr. Peter Attia. He's a very famous longevity expert from the US, one of the pioneers on this field. And I think he did a lot of work which let us, make people more sensitive to this topic. And this is really great. In his book, Outlive, he says, untreated insulin resistance, which is way, way, way before you have the sugar, increases the cancer risk 12 times. Mm-hmm. I think this is a number which is maybe too highly estimated. When I look to other research, it says, but minimum at least 3 to 4 times.
Okay.
So this is something where we doctors in the past never put attention on. Yeah,
insulin resistance,
insulin,
as a precursor,
sugar, insulin, not necessarily only the proper insulin resistance, like any kind of, there are multiple different sugar and insulin metabolism problems way before we get the diagnosis of diabetes. And these are also problems, for example, why I was so much focusing on this in the past is these are reasons why infertility can happen. And this is completely neglected. A woman with who is 25, 28, sometimes, let's say a bit older, especially when they are growing older. In our days, women do not get their children with 18 anymore.
No, not anymore.
Not 23, not 25, very less, very little. The most of the women have a career, and then, mid-30s, they start to look to have a family with children. And then we face a lot of problems and a lot of miscarriages. We face a lot of infertility, and nobody can explain this infertility. But what I can see now, after looking to it, and these are women who do not have formally any disease. When you look to their sugars, they are normal, and they are not obese, and they are slim, and they are healthy, and still we cannot find a reason for infertility. When you look more detailed, then you see, okay, these women have a sugar and insulin metabolism alteration. I want to say alteration. Yeah, because there are different types of it. And then this is treatable. And when you treat them, and suddenly these women can get pregnant without IVF. And suddenly, when they had, I have many patients who come to me, they had 2, 3 miscarriages in the past, and they're desperate. They're meanwhile 37, 38, and they think they can never have a child.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And then they're slim, sometimes even skinny. And the first thing what I do is I evaluate their family history and say, anybody in the family having diabetes? Just an uncle. Or my grandma had, but when she was very old. But this is a hint for me, there is a genetic background for it.
Okay,
yeah?
So how much is genetic? This is what I want. My main question is the propensity to have this sugar metabolism alteration, as you say, or the propensity to have cancers. How much of that is within us, and how much of it is lifestyle?
Very good question, and very important question. Actually, in the past, we doctors or medicine thought we are the slaves of our genes. Whatever we inherited as genes, this is what will happen to us. Meanwhile, we know that we have epigenetics. So this means what we do, what we eat, especially as a human beings, as children, and especially what the mother eats in her pregnancy can impact very much our metabolism. So there is this research about the first 1,000 days of life. And we know that the first 1,000 days of life, this means from the conception up to the third year of life, actually what the child eats, what the mother has eaten in her pregnancy, impacts the whole life, the metabolism of this child. And this is called epigenetics. And in the past, we didn't have any idea about it. Mm-hmm. We had the idea a pregnant woman craves a lot, and because she craves a lot and haram, she needs to get what she craves.
She's eating for two.
Exactly. And she should not miss a meal, and she needs to eat for two. And I have people around me who gained 40 kilos in their pregnancies. And nowadays, when I speak to them and say, how did you manage to gain that much? And one of them is in my family, and she said to me, look, this was almost 40 years ago. And she said, look, I was young, and I was told you are pregnant now. And in pregnancy, there is no taboo. You can eat how much you want, and when you want, and what you want. And I was sitting every evening with a bottle, with crisps, and with a bottle of Fanta in front of the TV and eating this. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this is the reason why she gained that much, and she never could lose it anymore.
Right.
And the child resulted out of this pregnancy is an adult now. He's obese.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And this is typical. And this is something which we need to, this awareness is not there. And it's also not there, not in the society, but unfortunately also not in my colleagues do not know about it.
Side question, very much a side question. Yeah. We as humans can eat as much as we allow ourselves to eat? Can we eat indefinitely?
No, we should not.
No, I know. But I'm saying the way that our biology is, can someone sit down to eat and just keep eating?
Depends on genetics and epigenetics. What actually the genes which produce the saturation or the fullness hormone is working well or not. I mean, this is not, everybody is different. So as different as we look, as different we function. And we cannot do one size fits all. There are people who can really eat indefinite. Yeah, they don't have this being full feeling at all, and others can eat only a little bit and feel directly full, and that's why everybody is different, and everybody needs to look at it. But when we look to how much we eat and how we age, we know that a calorie deficit. This means not counting calories. We are against this actually, but eating not until we are full. Eating a bit, and still we could eat, but we stop eating. This is the principle of eating. These people live the longest.
Okay.
This is the most important longevity driver, actually, eating less calories.
Why are you against calorie deficit?
No, I'm not against calorie deficit. I am against counting calories because, look, calories are actually the heat when you burn measured heat when you burn nutrition in a certain condition. But our body does not work this way. Our body, for example, the same amount of calories in a completely seeded whole wheat bread and a piece of white bread, you eat it, does not reflect the same in our body. Yeah, it doesn't. So because the peel, the fibers, the fat, the protein content reflects completely different on the carb, and that's why our body doesn't consume it that way, like we would think, like in a mathematical way. So the same kind of calories in, let's say, white bread or a croissant compared to, I don't know, nuts, definitely does not have the same effect on your body. That's why we do not count calories. This is this is too simple. The body does not work this way.
Let's talk about how the body works. Let's talk about functions, and let's see what makes a body work effectively, and therefore the reason why we should be eating only whole foods and fresh foods and not processed. And
in the past, we were neglecting the microbiome of our guts. Yeah, so and nowadays we know and we see that the microbiome has a big role, and this is the reason why we need to also eat different types of plants, because we see the more diverse we eat, the more diverse is our microbiome, and what keeps us healthy, especially when we age, what actually produces the most important substances for us to function is our microbiome. That's why it's the food on the first place. So we need to look how we can diversify the healthy microbiome in our guts. And the research is ongoing in this field. And we know, for example, that coffee feeds two types of microbes in our guts, which are very healthy for us. Yeah. So people who drink coffee actually have these two microbes, and these microbes are producing substances which are crucial, essential for longevity. So so coffee is good, but on the other hand, coffee is the most one of the crops where the most pesticides are used.
Right.
Yeah, and this is and this is also reflected in our food, and this is also the pesticides is not only poison per se; it's a poison for the microbiome as well. And the diversification is very much affected by use of pesticides and herbicides, and this is how actually it affects our health.
And this is again why choosing the product amongst all the different, but that's the problem. There's so much variety, there's so much choice out there, and it's a lot of work to keep sifting through this. You know, you are going around your day, you want fuel in your body so that you can continue to go around your day. You don't want to sit and think about the mathematical or chemical formula of something before you put it in your body. This is the difficulty I think that people have. And because of, go to any supermarket. I don't go to supermarkets, by the way. I just cannot bear the unbelievable numbers of boxes and things on shelves, because it overwhelms. But that's another story.
Yeah, this is true. But it is possible. I'm a fully working woman. I'm a mother of a 10-year-old, and yes, thank goodness we're living here in Dubai, we can have helpers. So how I solved it is, first of all, I do go to the supermarket.
Okay.
Whether I do the grocery shopping or my husband does. So we deliberately go to supermarkets which offer us very fresh, if possible, locally grown vegetables, herbs, and products. That's why local supermarkets here, the ones which are having mainly the local vegetables, are for me the number one.
Yes.
And I love the vegetable section. It inspires me. So I buy vegetables, herbs, and we use a lot of different herbs. The herbs are fantastic because they have so many very valuable substances which increases the value of the food which you prepare. So we call them polyphenols. And the more diverse polyphenols we eat, the better we are doing. This is proven, by the way. And all these experts on nutrition are totally agreeing on it. Yeah, if it's King's College, Charité Berlin, or the University of Los Angeles, or anywhere, they're all agreeing on it. The more diverse is because of the polyphenols. And the diversity should be also in colors. We know that every color of fruit and vegetables have different polyphenols. The dark colors are actually the best. But there are also greens, which are excellent for us. So first of all, we go and shop ourselves because we want to have high quality foods. If I can, and I always say I invest in my food. I invest in my food means also money-wise I invest in my food. So this means I try my best, and not everybody can afford it, but I try my best to buy organic. Organic is, yes, much more expensive than non-organic. Why organic? Because, first of all, the herbicide, pesticides are less. Secondly, the fertilizers are less to grow these fruits and vegetables, because when you fertilize a fruit or a vegetable, it grows very quickly, and it can be empty. This means the polyphenols which we are looking at, which are so beneficial for us, for our microbiome, by the way, the microbiome also feeds from the polyphenols, they are much higher, way much higher in organic food than in food which had a lot of fertilizers, because it's polyphenols are mainly the protective factors for the plant. So the plant needs a lot of protective factors when it has not the herbicides and pesticides on it, because there are a lot of pests and whatever trying to attack the plant. So the plant creates substances to protect itself, and these substances apparently protect us. So if we shop ourselves, and then at home, to be honest, I invested time and energy to teach my helper. And this is the key. And what I always keep saying, the most important factor to age in a healthy way, to stay healthy, is food, apparently. And we will come to the other factors.
Yes.
And mostly the people who are the least educated are preparing our foods.
Okay.
And this is what is very important. We need to educate them.
Absolutely.
And the whole system needs to change a bit. We should have maybe cooking schools for our helpers. Maybe this is a business, actually, where we can teach them why it is important to do this and how to cook in a healthy way and not to fry food, because this happens to
Absolutely.
it.
And we should have food lessons for our children at schools.
Oh, this
right?
is a major topic. I keep saying this.
Yes.
Look, the children are learning about everything. My son is 10. He's in the 5th grade now. He did not have one time in all these years the topic, what is healthy food? And why this one is a better choice than this one. And this is so important to implement this into the school system. Right. And the whole society will change. We should be interested in that, because and I can see how my son, because he's educated, we talk about it a lot. Actually, he told me 2 days ago, because, you know, in his snacks, we have sweet days and non-sweet days in our family.
Okay.
So we have days where we do not touch anything with sugar. So literally, fruits are allowed. Everything else is allowed, but we don't take anything which has sugar for
Added
all of
sugar.
us.
Yeah.
So, and then there are days, of course, he's a child. I mean, he's a child. He needs to have his chocolate. For on some days in the week, for example, it's only the Wednesday where he has. And on these days, he can also bring something which has to school. And most schools and kindergartens have non-sugar policy, but they don't really look at it. I mean, it's not controlled. It's the children eat what they want to eat. So, and mostly, for example, for his snack time, he has fruits and then berries and of course, whole grain bread with something healthy in it. We also try to avoid processed meat, so we hardly have this. And he told me yesterday or the day before that one of his friends says he will have the same diet like my son. Okay. And he gave his crackers to his brother and took his carrots.
Okay. Okay, so good. The word is spreading.
Exactly. So this is possible. What I want to say is that we can teach children, of course, on the level of their age, what is healthy food, and they will have better choices for themselves deliberately, because they know about it. And this is possible.
So we are looking after what we eat, what we put in our mouths and in our bodies, because that's feeding the microbiome, which is very important for the body function. What else affects the microbiome aside from food, and what functions are affected by the microbiome?
Mainly it is the food.
Okay.
Yeah, the diversity of food and lacking preservatives, lacking additives in the food. We know that, for example, as an alternative to sugar, we have sweeteners. And we know that these sweeteners are killing our microbiome. Yeah, so the additives in our food. So it is the food. Okay. Mainly it is the food. We know also that one of the hallmarks of aging is the aging of the microbiome. The diversity gets lost. So, and research is working on this field to see how we can keep the diversity of our microbiome when we grow older. Yeah, and this will be also one of the impacts in aging and healthy aging.
Does stress and lack of sleep affect microbiome?
Yes. Sorry, this is definitely. Thank you for adding this. Stress is definitely, and this is a phenomenon. Stress can really affect the diversity of our microbiome. Sleeping is one of the most important pillars for healthy aging, by the way. So we were talking about what is affecting healthy aging. The most important in my mind is really what we eat and what we don't eat. I mean that the additives, the processed food, when we don't eat this, the sugars, then our microbiome and we are doing much better. The second thing what affects healthy aging is actually how we move and how much we move. This is so important. In the past, we didn't know that muscle training, weight training is so important for healthy aging. And we know now that healthy muscles, maintaining the muscles, which also maintains the bones, by the way. Without good muscles, we cannot have good bones. Osteoporosis treatment is muscle training, one of the most important factors for osteoporosis treatment.
Interesting.
And only when we have healthy muscles, we can have healthy bones and then healthy organs, by the way.
Okay.
So this means the second component is for sure moving. I just recently listened to an expert regarding an oncologist in one of the big or important, or let's say famous universities in Germany, talking about what affects the therapy in a positive way of a cancer patient. When a cancer patient gets certain chemotherapy, and when you compare different cancer patients, how they react to this chemotherapy, and then when you compare what you additionally can do to have them having a good effect of the chemotherapy, the most important factor was the count of steps.
Oh, right.
So nothing affected if chemotherapy is more successful or not than the steps.
How very interesting. So the more they moved, the more the patients receiving chemotherapy moved, the more effective the chemotherapy was on their treatment. Oh.
Yeah. So the likelihood to say after, let's say, 4 rounds of the same chemotherapy, to see in the follow-up CT scan that the tumor is smaller, the most effective additional factor was the amount of steps the patients were doing.
How very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in our days, this is key. So we know
but
now.
It's not very easy to do, because usually a patient on chemotherapy feels complete fatigue. And
but on the other hand, we don't tell them that they need to do it. You know what I mean?
If they knew that this was helping their
exactly.
their
So
treatment,
it's I myself I have a background in oncology, so I actually worked 5.5 years in one of the biggest gynae oncological centers in Germany, and I did myself 1,900 chemotherapies, because we were completely comprehensive. We were doing the diagnostic, the surgery, the chemotherapy, the aftercare. So everything was with us. And in those days, the patients we told them, whatever feels good for you, just rest.
Exactly.
Yeah?
Yes.
Rest and get pampered and whatever. No, we need to tell them, please stand up. And they're not all the time bad. They can walk. It's not like that every chemotherapy knocks them down. But we tell them, rest and, pamper yourself and these kind of things. No, we need to tell them.
So why do the steps help the chemotherapy?
Apparently,
how does it support the functions?
This is such a complex physiology that it's not explained. So every movement helps.
Okay.
So we can see in every field that moving and using our muscles helps. For example, in gynecology, I keep telling my patients when they are pregnant, or in obstetrics, when you're pregnant, the best what you could do is move.
Sure.
Move as much as you can. We can see directly women who are moving have much less preterm deliveries, have much less complications in their pregnancy, have much better deliveries. The likelihood of normal delivery and uncomplicated delivery is much better. There's almost no too much move. I always tell them, look, go not beyond your limits. You don't need to reach a new goal, or you don't need to have your new record on what you're doing, but keep moving. And this we can see in every field of medicine, actually. So, and moving makes all kind of chronic diseases much less. Moving makes the likelihood for cancer much less. The risk factor for cancer is much, much, much less.
For person who does not have cancer, if the more they move, the less they are likely to have
Absolutely.
cancer.
This is absolutely proven.
Tell me
in
about
many
cancer.
studies.
Tell me about cancer, and let's talk specifically about women cancers as well, because, I mean, we talk generally, but also because you're a gynecologist, I'd like to know from you, from my observation, only because a couple of friends of mine recently have unfortunately passed away with terrible ovarian cancers, or terrible, and after a long struggle of having a lot of organs removed and so on. My observation is that this is on the increase. Is it? What causes it, and how can we prevent it?
So, first of all, our perception is different. We have more information. So this means we know about the friend's friend who actually got cancer. So we feel that we have much more cancer now.
Sure.
And I'm pretty sure also that we have much more cancer now, to be honest. In generally, I don't know exactly the numbers, but I can understand it, because, I mean, it's clear that we get we are longer sick before we die, and this includes also the cancers, because the cancer can be survived for a longer time, you know, in our days, because of medicine. Because of the sophisticated medicine which we have, we can survive cancers or survive with the cancer for longer.
Survive with it for longer.
Yes,
okay.
exactly.
Yep.
And cancer hardly has one reason. When we look to cancers, in Germany, the field of the gynecologist is a bit different. Breast is the field of the gynecologist. This is not the case in any other non-German speaking countries, but in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, breast is the field of the gynecologist, and the breast is treated as a part of the gynecologist, or there are breast care and breast cancer centers as a part of the gyne department in these three countries. And so I was very much, of course, involved in breast cancer diagnostic, treatment, and now, of course, prevention. And breast cancer is the most common cancer of the woman. And regarding, for example, that what we were discussing regarding food, we see directly an impact of that, what we eat and how we eat, what we drink on breast cancer risk. And what is very important to know, my patients, when we talk about breast cancer and prevention, and I talk a lot about it, because every cancer which is prevented is wonderful, right?
Absolutely.
They don't know that alcohol has a direct impact on the breast cancer risk.
Tell me about that.
So we know there is no safe limit of alcohol regarding cancer risk. So every amount of alcohol which you drink regularly has an increase or increases your cancer risk. And we know that women who have regularly alcohol on daily basis have definitely multiple times more cancer risk than women who do not drink at all.
Okay.
So secondly, as we discussed earlier, movement has an impact of cancer, on cancer, so especially breast cancer. Women who are constantly active, doing their exercises, especially weight training, definitely have statistically less cancer.
Okay.
So we can define a lot of things what we can do to improve our, especially breast cancer risk. As a person who is more expert on breast cancer, I can say that very, very, very well. So and cancer has never, as I told you, one reason. Yeah, it has multiple reasons. Yes, there are also genetic reasons for having the cancer. We now know two genes which are very much impacting the cancer risk, the BRCA genes, and we can look at them and see if we have these. When cancer is very common in the family, it makes sense to look to this BRCA genes. And Angelina Jolie, this wonderful woman, actually made it public that she had removed her breast tissue, gland tissue, and she didn't need to do this. Nobody would have noticed that she had removed her glands, because it's not visible for us. But she did it deliberately to make aware that this is possible. Her mother died from ovarian cancer, which was genetic had a genetic reason. Apparently, she did the cancer test, and she could see she has high risk for ovarian cancer and for breast cancer. And that's why she did this.
So she removed her glands because she did not want to
get first the cancer. And then to react. And this is what I will recommend also to patients.
So as a practitioner, do you recommend that women are tested for those genes?
Especially when there's
screening, by way of, general screening.
Yes. I mean, yes, because we can do preventive things. Yeah. So when a woman has a lot of breast cancers in her family, she has the choice to do the genetic testing now. Meanwhile, the genetic tests are way cheaper than they were a few years back. Now they cost around, I think, plus minus a bit more than $1,000. Yeah, and can be done in many places. Many clinics offer this test. I always tell my patients when we discuss this, look, when you want to do this test, you need to be aware what are you going to do if the test is positive. Okay? You need to discuss this with your family, and you need to know what is the next step for you if it's positive. Yeah? You need to be prepared for it. So you have two options. One option is to do that, what Angelina Jolie did. Yeah? And then the likelihood that you will ever suffer from breast cancer is extremely unlikely, not zero, but 0. Something right. Very, 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 very low. And in general, we have a life risk of 10 to 12% when we are at low risk. So we have a high risk of developing cancer. Every 8th to 9th woman will have breast cancer. So this is a threat we all face, right? So in this case, when we know there is a genetic background, the likelihood becomes much higher, like 80 to 90%. Yeah. So she has the choice to remove her glands, and meanwhile, the plastic surgery is very advanced. They can remodel the breast. And it can really look nice, and she's forever more or less saved from the risk of having breast cancer.
If a woman had the gene for ovarian cancer, what can she do?
If the gene, and today in our days it's possible to actually calculate the risk. When the gene is there and she has high risk for ovarian cancer, she can also get her ovaries removed for sure.
Okay.
And the second option she would have is when the breast cancer risk is positive, she would get screened much more frequently. Yeah? She would have every 6 months latest the breast ultrasound, minimum every year mammogram, additionally every year an MRI. MRI is not necessarily showing always the early stages. Very often we can see the very early stages only in ultrasound, very often only in mammogram. And MRI is not necessarily always the better tool, but we can add it.
Right. Screening. Prevention is key. I think before we get to disease, we need to do everything that we can to prevent it.
Yeah, screening, especially for cancer, is for me the second step. The first step is always to do everything to prevent every single cancer.
Sure.
There's a number in my mind. Every single cancer in Germany, I know the number in Germany, costs the society 240,000 euros. With treatment, whatever, maybe even more when we calculate the social aspect and whatever. But when we avoid one cancer, we have saved 240,000 euros in the health system.
Sure.
With this 240,000 euros, we can do a lot to prevent cancer. And one of them is, for example, screening or offering people to screen for insulin sugar alterations, to be able to treat it. Yeah, to treat it, to be aware of it. And when we do this, we can avoid more cancer.
Before we go, I want us to talk about the functions and what controls the functions and the hormones in our body, because that's what we can do on the inside by way of prevention as well. When you talk about sugar metabolism alterations, does that, to avoid this sugar metabolism problems, do you just cut sugar out of your diet?
First of all is the diet, yeah.
But if you cut all added sugar from your diet, does that solve the problem?
It's not enough, because carbs are sugars as well. So when you eat white bread every day, it's like you are eating sugar.
Okay.
Yeah. So unprocessed food, of course, as less as possible real sugars, and but there are treatments for sugar and insulin metabolism problems. I mean, there is, just to name one. And now a study is ongoing with this medication. There's a medication for sugar which is the most known, most prescribed medication in the world. And it's been on the market, I think, this year for 70 years. It's Metformin. Metformin is sold mostly under the name Glucophage. Metformin is the eldest, most prescribed medication in the world for diabetes. And people have taken it for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. When we observe these people who have taken metformin and not taken other sugar medications, we have so many other different kind of sugar medications on the market, because it's a very important market for the pharma companies, because so many people have sugar in the world. And when we observe patients who have taken metformin compared to patients who have a regime without metformin, and then even if they have controlled their sugars even better with the other medication, we can see that patients who have been on metformin for long term actually live longer and have less cancer. Yeah, and this is one of the reasons. And that a new study was actually designed and planned and initiated, but it took a long time to start this study. The study's name is the TAME study, Targeting Aging with Metformin, because they could also see in observational studies that people who were on metformin for a longer time have less dementia, apparently, and live longer and live healthier longer. Okay. And the aim was now to really give evidence that metformin can cause this. Metformin is extremely cheap.
Yes.
It doesn't have any patents anymore. Meanwhile, every country has own companies to produce their own metformin, because the generics of it, exactly, and it costs really a few dirhams per month.
So what is it that the metformin is correcting in our bodies that our body cannot correct on its own? So tell me a little bit about our body's hormones and functions and how they work and how we can look after them.
Metformin has many targets in the cell, apparently. So just roughly, it affects that the insulin in our body, which is produced in our pancreas, is more effective and we can utilize it better, and the body needs to produce less insulin. One of the mechanisms probably to prevent from cancer is probably that it reduces the overall amount of insulin in our body. It makes the insulin more efficient. Secondly, we know that metformin works on an enzyme complex which is called the mTOR enzyme complex, which is one of the most important enzyme complex in the physiology of tumor growth. These are the two main reasons probably, but there are multiple points which metformin apparently affects in the cell.
So let's talk a little bit about our bodies, what's already in them, how we can maintain what we have to stay healthy and to live better, longer, whatever we choose, to stay functioning. So the functions are controlled by the hormones, and it's a chemical salad almost in the body.
Yeah. So hormones are very, very important for almost all functions in the body. When we're young, we have all high levels of hormones, and men and women, and we are functioning. We have the most efficient time of our abilities, or of our physical efficacy is the highest between around 25.
Okay.
And this is the time where we have the peak of almost all hormones in our body. And especially as women, when we are growing older, we notice some changes in our bodies, and we know that this is connected with actually changes of hormones, because our ovaries are producing mainly our main sexual hormones, and the ovaries get literally empty. Their reserve actually gets less and less, and the less reserve of eggs we have in our ovaries, the less our cycle works, and with the cycle, our hormone production actually works. And so there was always I mean, the medicine could see that hormones are apparently key, and when the hormones do not work well, that many disorder starts to happen. We don't feel well, we don't function well, and with not good functioning, we age also quicker. So there was always the tendency to try to correct the hormones. Even in the 30s, 40s, they were using hormones. And in those days, really the hormones which we're using now. And this is very interesting to know that they were using the hormones which we call today body identical or bioidentical hormones. In Europe, they were using them to correct functions. And then in the 50s and 60s, the synthetic hormones were invented, and they took over. And for decades, the synthetic hormones dominated the market. And in the 80s and 90s in Europe, the opinion was every perimenopausal, menopausal woman should be put on hormones, and she would do better. She was doing actually better. And then there were studies which should prove how good the hormones were doing, but these studies actually turned the opposite, actually. And these studies showed, one of them was called the WHI study, a huge study with many thousands women observed, actually, that hormone therapy in that way might increase breast cancer risk, and might increase cardiovascular risk. And then there was, from one moment to the next moment, the hormones were the booze. They should not be given, and everybody was afraid of cancer, and all doctors stopped suddenly to give anybody.
And they frightened
hormones.
Everyone up until today,
Absolutely.
actually. But the key word was might cause, and there was a conditional.
First of all, this study was not designed to see if hormones cause cancer, and when this is not the case, the study cannot have this statement, actually. So this was a misinterpretation. And second, there were a lot of mistakes in how the study was conducted, and the collective of people who were women who were involved in the study and whatever. So soon after, it was clear that the study is nonsense regarding this statement. But still, this remained in all minds. When I started looking into hormones, when I started offering hormone therapy, I was facing a big fear of women. Oh my God, doctor, you want to give me hormones, but they're causing cancer. And I had patients who came to me and suffering with menopausal, perimenopausal disorders. But they came to me and said, doctor, I was to my own doctor in XYZ country, and he's a professor for obstetrics and gynecology, and he delivered all my children. He told me, if you want to take hormones, go to floor 3. There is oncology. You will see how you will suffer.
Oh dear.
I mean, this was really, and what disturbs me the most, that people who did not have any idea about the details of the study. And the same study had also one arm where women only were given synthetic estrogen. And these women who were giving the synthetic estrogen had less cancer. 20 years later, 2022, there was a re-evaluation of these women, and they had even much less cancer than the normal.
A few months ago, this study was withdrawn, and there was an apology actually from the authorities that it misguided everybody.
So why and how hormones can prevent cancer? So I am convinced, not only me, many of us, that when we do a balanced hormone therapy, we can see in multiple studies that our immune system is doing so much better. So we can see, for example, in COVID, it was very interesting, women who were treated with hormone replacement therapy compared to women of the same age, of the same in the same condition without hormone treatment therapy, they had much less the risk of being admitted with severe COVID into the hospital. They had much less risk of dying from COVID. And they were doing so much better. And we can, even in the old studies, they could see that women who were on hormones, even with the synthetic ones, had, for example, much less bowel cancer. And this is because hormones and the immune system works so much better with hormones because they are key for the function of the immune system. And normally we have every single day cancer cells in our body, every single day, in our breast, everywhere in every organ, and our immune system needs to detect and kill them. This is called apoptosis. And this works much or doesn't work well when we don't have our hormones, because they keep its functioning.
Right.
And that's why when I look to my collective of patients who are on hormones for several years, when I look statistically how much breast cancer, especially, I can see in these women, I can for sure say that and this is not representative for sure, but I can say that the women who have hormones definitely have much, much less breast cancer than those who do not have hormones.
So balancing hormones in the body is actually going to keep us healthier for longer. And we're not only talking about women, we're also talking about, tell me a little bit about men before we sign off.
So actually, everybody thinks hormone treatment is just for women. But we all do have the same hormones. Men and women have the same hormones, but the balances of the hormones are different. So we women have much more estrogen, much more progesterone, and we have less testosterone. Our DHEA levels from our adrenal glands are usually lower. And but for example, there's one hormone which is very important for healthy aging. It's called pregnenolone, and men and women are the same. And the same in men, they also have a decrease of their hormone levels. And this is also something which affects their lives. I always say the woman has the perimenopause and the man has the midlife crisis.
That's true.
So it's actually men. I see also men, and I treat also the husbands of my patients. Mostly they're husbands of my patients.
Yes.
Actually, they're all husbands of my patients, because they could see what a wonderful transformation their wives did. And they could see, and I explain a lot. And very often they come with their wives, and I explain this is because this went down. And DHEA, for example, is a fantastic hormone when your energy, when your drive is very much down. Your immune system, DHEA is one of the most important hormones to affect this in a positive way, but also in men. And then they come and say, what about me? And I said, of course, we can look to your hormones, and I'm trained for that.
So hormone replacement therapy for men as well.
Absolutely.
What are the symptoms that a man is looking for? Because we know everything about menopause and the symptoms of menopause. What should the man be looking out for? Or his wife should be looking out for?
So it's like being overwhelmed, being stressed, too much stressed, overwhelmed, being... and missing the drive, missing the energy, and very important, having sleeping disorders is usually a hormone deficiency, or very often. Of course, there can be other reasons as well. In medicine, nothing is only because of one thing.
Sure.
Almost nothing. And the feeling I'm not doing well, and very often this is subconsciously. This is subconscious. They are starting to be unhappy. They're starting to be questioning their lives. And did I miss something? Whatever.
The midlife crisis.
Yeah, the midlife crisis, exactly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, not having the energy, not being social anymore, becoming grumpy, becoming angry. And we see this a lot in our circles around us, in our families. And one of the, let's say, lecturers I listened to, he said, look, I can see from a man's attitude how he's behaving, how he's entering the room, how he's behaving in a certain situation, if his testosterone is high or low. We all think that people who have good testosterone levels or higher, I mean, we always talk about balancing hormones, never increasing to a level which is not healthy. That a man who has higher testosterone levels is an aggressive man. It's the opposite.
Oh.
A man who has very low testosterone levels is the aggressive one, because he is overwhelmed. He cannot control himself. And testosterone I always say testosterone makes us mentally and physically stronger. So even in women, we have patients who get overwhelmed and anxious and sometimes also aggressive and irritable because their testosterones are too low. And then we correct it gently, and we never exaggerate. We never go beyond that what is physiologic. Then we see they are doing so much better, and they need less for example, antidepressants or anxiety medication, or they don't need it at all.
Absolutely, because a big side effect of this imbalance in the body hormones is definitely anxiety. And we talk about the reproductive hormones, etc. But we also, if we look at cortisol and the hormones from the thyroid, all these get into the same balance for healthy.
Yeah, and one is depending on the other. So one is affecting the other. So when we have, for example, good balanced sexual hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, this makes us stronger and calmer, and our cortisol level goes down. This impacts for sure the insulin and sugar metabolism, and this impacts the other health. So everything is connected to each other. We need to look what is the base. We need to try to correct the functions. The hormones are one of the most important things to help the functions to work properly. And that's why hormones are in the very beginning of functional medicine. So it's one of the biggest pillars of functional medicine is to look to hormones and to correct them.
So we talked about disease, and we talked about prevention, and we talked about treatment, which primarily will need to start from balancing hormones, looking after the microbiome as well. And then pharmaceuticals come well into the end as a top player, in my book at least.
Mm-hmm. Yes, pharmaceuticals. But when we look to functions, we see mainly that what we use are natural substances. And this is the biggest problem. Natural substances, for functions, we look what is missing in the body. And this substance is natural. And what I did not know for decades as a doctor, that natural substances are not patentable, which is positive. So this means everybody can start producing tomorrow with a good company every supplement, which is a natural substance.
Sure.
But this is also a dilemma. When something is not patentable, no pharma company will be interested to support this substance, because this substance is directly competition to their medication, probably.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we are not demonizing pharma companies. We are not blaming them. This is not their duty. This is not their scope. So when we look to functions and functional medicine, and we use natural substances and also hormones in our days, we use that what the body used to produce or still producing, but not enough. We put that back what the body was producing. So this is a natural substance and not patentable. And that's why this was so much neglected all the time.
Yeah? I never got the money for the funding into the research that makes it approved by FDA or any other body. It remains.
This is the biggest issue. So this means we need to. The problem is also that for studies which are conducted with non-natural substances, there is hardly any budget anywhere.
Right.
Not in this country. I mean, I think Abu Dhabi has a huge program now to starting to look into preventive medicine. Singapore is a big, one of the best ones implementing programs for preventing medicine, and there is better funding, and I think this country is definitely one of the pioneers looking into it. But when we look into the other countries, any other country, I don't know any other country having a huge budget for non-patentable studies. I mean, studies with substances with which are not patentable. And this is actually what we are lacking. And this will make also the public health cheaper.
Absolutely. Yeah? Absolutely. That will make public health cheaper, allow funding to go more towards more education, more culture, more helping the underprivileged and so on. I think this is probably the best news that I have heard in a very long time, that we are starting to see funding from Abu Dhabi and maybe Singapore as well towards unpatentable remedies to a lot of ailments that
to be honest, public health systems in many countries are already bankrupt. They don't have the choice. They need to look into this, because when we do, there is another term, it's sick care and health care. So sick care is you don't go to the doctor until you have something and the doctor tries to fix it. Healthcare is we look to you when you're still healthy and we try to see what kind of risks you might have to develop disease and try to correct the functions that this disease cannot happen. This is way, way, way cheaper, but not funded by pharma companies, which is absolutely understandable because this is not their scope.
Absolutely.
So the public health systems are bankrupt because we were doing only sick care. Yeah. So there is hardly in any European country well-established preventive program. It's mostly the opposite. You need to be really sick, severely sick before you can
see a doctor.
Get any help.
That's true. Well, didn't the Chinese emperors from the old dynasties pay doctors, keep them on their payroll and in their palaces to keep them healthy? And once they get sick, they would
get killed.
Fire them. Fire them. Dr. Mukaddes, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We've learned a lot from you, and I hope to see you again soon. We will talk about all this in a lot more detail.
I'm very happy to do so. I mean, we need more awareness in the society.
Absolutely.
Only more awareness will create a change, and I'm very happy if I can contribute to this.
Thank you very, very much. الهرمونات مش عدوتك، هي رسالة جسمك إلك، وبعد اليوم ما عاد في عذر ما نسمعها ونوازنها لنعيش الحياة اللي بنستحقها. شكرا دكتور مقدس على كل العلم والمعلومات اللي عرفتين عليهم اليوم. نلتقي إن شاء الله بحلقة جديدة من تحت الهواء. إذا وصلتوا معنا لنهاية الحلقة حطوا لنا وردة بالتعليقات وشاركوا هالحلقة مع أي شخص بحياتكم ممكن يستفيد منها. وإذا عندكم اقتراح لموضوع أو ضيف ما تترددوا بمشاركته معنا بالتعليقات. السلام.